Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. This podcast is being sponsored by Get Loopy. On episode 41, you can hear the story of Isabel, the co-founder and CEO. Get Loopy, get a 20% discount off your first order. GetLoopy.com. Take it from the Ironwoman. Again, we have a very special guest and a very special friend here on the episode, Susan Siderman. I think we met last century. I think that sounds very cool in running class. So we've been running friends forever, but we want to hear from her. Susan, who is Susan who is joining us today for the episode?
Who is Susan? This is Susan Siderman. I met Susan Müller, I don't know, probably in 1996, 7, something like that, in the running classes.
92. I came to New York. I know.
Okay. We have been on a course since then in our own way. I refer to her as Smule, which is the combination of S for Susan and Mule, Müller. So she is forever in my heart and my husband's too, Smule. Okay? Okay.
So tell us a little bit about your running career. I mean, you and I, we have been running for many years, many marathons. What brought you to running?
So what brought me to running was the fact that it was a very convenient sport to fit into my routine and schedule back in 1980. 1980 is when basically the running craze really started. I lived on Long Island. Everybody was in the street running. And in 1980, I was a working mother. I was a New York City elementary school teacher. I had 2 daughters, ages 10 and 8. They required a lot of carpooling. So by getting home approximately 4:15, driving them to carpool, then I would run, and then I would go back and pick them up. It was a perfect fit for me. I didn't have to arrange to meet anybody, as in a tennis game. And it was just basically putting on your sneakers and out the door. So it was just a natural fit. I was always very athletic, so I always like to keep moving. And between working, carpooling, being athletic, not having to meet anybody, it just all worked.
That's amazing, right? So it fits into your schedule as a busy mom and a working mom. That's very
exactly.
Cool. I'm not sure. I think you still were living in Long Island when we met.
I was still living in Long Island. This was in the 80s. I had one other teacher friend who basically had the same schedule as myself. She was actually running 3 miles, which at the time I said, oh my God, 3 miles. She would literally run 2.5 miles on her own and pick me up in front of my house. And we would sort of finish the last quarter mile or half mile together. So I got enough courage to go out on my own. And then, half mile became a mile and eventually 3 miles. And I entered local Long Island 5Ks, which I realized I love the competition. Yeah. And then I drove into Manhattan to Central Park from Long Island and entered their races. Yeah. I remember one day there was a race that you could either choose a 4 or a 6 mile distance. And I did the 4. And as I finished and the other runners were coming in at 6 miles, I was like, oh, wow, that's 6 miles. I don't even know if I could do that. But I did. I kept getting longer and longer distances. And one day a friend of mine actually said to me, you know what? I'm training for a half marathon. I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And she was telling me about her black toes and lost toenails. And I'm going, oh my God. But it pushed me to try that. So I started to do half marathons. And they became easier and easier. And I remember vividly one time in Central Park, now 2 laps around the park is basically the half marathon, about 6.5 miles. When I finished that race, I said, I could go another loop, which would have brought me up to 18.5, 19 miles. And I said, I think I'm going to train for a marathon. That was in 1992, by the way. That was my first marathon. So it was a progression over the years, but it was just something that I loved. And again, it was something I could do on my own. Everything just clicked for me.
So 1992 was the first marathon. And how many have you completed so far?
November 1992 was my first New York City marathon. And to date, I have completed 55 marathons.
What a number, 55.
55 cool. Marathons, yes. I actually did the breakdown. I've run in 19 states in the United States. Oh. Okay. I've run 23 New York City marathons and 7 Bostons. I ran in 2 marathons in Canada, one in Toronto, one in Quebec City. And I've run in 6 European marathons: Rome, Venice, Medoc, France, Prague, Berlin, and Athens.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
Starting from that little quarter mile.
I know.
To running a lot of marathons.
That should be for the listeners, right? Anything is possible from a quarter mile to a marathon. And still going. That's it. And tell maybe us, is there any marathon that stands out for you out of those 55?
Well,
good one or bad one? You know, some runners, they always have stories, good one and bad ones.
Actually, I know that previous guest on Ross Frazier, and he spoke about Medoc, because I was there with him the same year. That has to be the most fun ever, with everybody in their costumes. You go through, I think it's 26 vineyards where they literally give you wine. You can get beef bourguignon at one stop. It was just a hoot. You don't run that for time.
Not for time.
For pure fun. I mean, they all, in some way or another, they all have been wonderful. Of course, Boston, I remember my first Boston. First of all, I couldn't believe I was there. You know, it was like, wow, I made Boston. And the best feeling in the world is when I finished that very first Boston, was I think 1997, April of 97. I qualified for the next year. So it's such a great feeling, you know, to qualify after you just completed one. You know, you're going to be back the following year. So that stands out. There have been so many. I mean, Athens was great, knowing that you're running along the same course as Philippides. Although in that marathon, the Greek people didn't seem to be too interested. So there was very few spectators, and you're running in Athens and the bus fumes and everything. But you end up in the Olympic Stadium. Each and every one has been very special. Yes, I've had some rough times in many of them, but muddled through and have always finished. So that's the most important thing. You finish.
I think so. We start and we finish. I sometimes meet people and they say, did you finish? And I was like, what kind of a question is that? Like, if you say I ran the New York City Marathon, that means I started and I finished. Otherwise, we would not say it, probably.
Exactly. And, you know, when people say, when they ask me, you know, what was your time? That's another, you know, what was your time? I always say, you know what? The first place person, the winner, and myself, we have a lot in common. We have the same starting line, the same course, we have the same finish line. His or her time is faster. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all the same.
I think so. Yeah. You mentioned that I interviewed another person from our group, actually 2. You're the third one.
There you go.
So what is that group? What does that mean to us? And now we even have a virtual meeting every Tuesday. Instead of running, we have now a Zoom call through the COVID-19.
You know, thinking back, I mean, we all sort of stumbled upon each other, so to speak, because we were not all in the same pace class. Yeah. But somehow or other, we all ended up in the same restaurant after the class, and the group became one. And of course, in this running group where we met in the running class, there are so many different professions. There are so many different ages. There are so many different pacers, you know, fast, slow, intermediate, whatever. Common thread is running. And that is the solidifier of our friendship. I mean, everybody just is there because of the running, a great group of people. And we've been together for a very, very long time. We really have. It's just a great group of people. From that running group on Tuesday nights, many of us branched out into a Saturday morning running group where we would run basically in Central Park, although we did venture out occasionally, and then coffee. So it was running and coffee, and we sat around the table and we solved all the problems of the world.
Yeah.
Until next week.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a lot of people think like running is just alone, but I feel like what we have accomplished together is nice. And the friendship that we have, I mean, we went through many ups and downs with everybody together. So I think that's what I appreciated. And for me, it was my second family. Being from Switzerland alone in New York, I found a wonderful community to have many friends from different, as you said, from different walks of life. I think that's also impressive. Like, when would you have ever met? You're a school teacher.
Never.
I was in human resources. We would have never met.
Never met, but that common thread, and we were there every Tuesday, most of the time on Saturday mornings, and it has just continued. I just want to mention also that because of the running classes, one of the organizers of those running classes actually started the team that I'm on, which is the Mercury Masters. It's a team associated with the New York Road Runners. And one of the organizers of the running classes started this team, and it was an all-female, 50-plus age running team. I would not classify it as a very competitive team in the sense that it was not only elite runners. It was all paces, even some walkers. You had to be 50 or over and be female. And if you want, we say with the 5 Fs. You have to be female, 50 plus, and you want to have friendship, fun, and fitness. Being now on a team of all females, for me personally, is what I call my Title IX moment. I was in high school and college. There was no Title IX. Female sports was sort of put on the back burner, or none at all, so to say. Never had the opportunity to be on a team. And so another thing out of running was that I feel like I'm doing something. I'm part of the team that I never had that experience being in high school and college. And again, we're competitive in our own way. It's more the friendship and the fun and the fitness that makes it special.
But I heard that your team was many times you got awards. So I think you're still pretty competitive, even if women are over 50. Yeah. So I think it's a very good team.
It is. It's a great team.
Before we recorded, we said something. Your name is also a verb. So maybe you want to say something about that. Some secret.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, one of the things that I've learned from running is that, you got to take life one step at a time. Okay. And that means accepting things that just go hand in hand with aging, okay? Now, back when I started, I was a pretty fast runner, okay? I won many age group awards. I mean, I wasn't the top of the food chain, but I was, pretty fast, okay? And then, all of a sudden, I got a little slower and a little slower. And, that could really do a number on you if you don't accept the fact that this is how life is. One step at a time. Okay, so I was fast, then I got slower, then I started to what I call slog, which is a combination of shuffle and jog. And now basically I am my own version of a power walk, which is fine. I'm still out there, I'm still on the road. But along the way, besides just age-related, physical situations arise where your knees may start to go, your ankles may start to go. So what was happening was that I was falling a lot. I mean, which became an issue for me, obviously. It never broke a nose. It never broke teeth. I did land one time on my chin, and I had to be rushed to the emergency room to get stitches. So my name among my running team and the running class friends, my name, Susan, has become a verb. So now when somebody falls, they go, I Susan today. So it's the dubious honor of having the act of falling be named after you. So, but, you have to accept all of these things along the way. I remember when I did my first 2-hour half marathon, I thought I needed a shrink. I thought I needed a shrink to say, oh my God, calm it down. 2-hour half marathon. It's okay. Because up until then I was doing, 150, 155. And then after a while you say, get over it. Set your priorities. Just accept it. Do what you can and be out there. That's how I feel anyway.
It's important. And I know now you do virtual races and you became the expert.
Well, because of the COVID-19 situation, all the races have been canceled. I decided to try a virtual race, which I now, now it's, all over, but I never did one before. And I had registered for the Brooklyn Half, which I love. I just love the Brooklyn Half, to go from Prospect Park to Coney Island. And so the New York Roadrunners offered that as a virtual race. So I had to learn how to get work a GPS smartwatch, which I didn't have. My first one didn't work. I actually did the half marathon 1 week, and I realized that the smartwatch with the GPS didn't work. So I said, oh my gosh, I have to go do another one the next week. So I did. I got another smartwatch, spent the whole week on the phone with customer service, the technology. I always start by saying to these lovely young people, I'm of a certain demographic, so please go slow with me. And they do. So so I did the virtual Brooklyn Half. Then the other virtual race I did was called the Social Distancing Unrun, which meant that any race that you had signed up for, you could do it virtually. It didn't matter the distance. So I did New York Roadrunners Lesbian Gay Pride Run on June 27th because I had signed up for that, and I got my Social Distancing Unrun medal. So I've done 2 of them. So they're fun. They're okay. They're good.
And I think this is for the audience. So we learned now from you from a quarter mile, half a mile to a marathon is possible. Virtual races are possible. What else can we say to the audience who wants to start virtual races? Or we know we have to wear a mask running in Central Park. If you're outside of the city, it might be a little different. But what other tips would you have for the audience?
To start running or to just be a runner? To start running, all you need to do to be a runner is to start walking, to be perfectly honest. I remember the beginners training program was strictly for walkers. And if you could walk 20 minutes, pace is not important. And people have to get that. Pace is not important. If you could walk, and you can walk for 20 minutes. So then after you can walk for 20 minutes, start walking a minute, jogging 30 seconds, or however long it takes you to get winded. Stop, walk. All you have to do is really just get out there, because if you can walk, you can jog. For me, running has just been a wonderful mental and physical enhancer for me. I mean, everybody realizes, I'm sure, about the physical aspects, the nutrition that you really should eat, and the exercise would get your body moving. And I don't say physically it's for weight loss. I don't think it's for weight loss. It's for weight control. I say it's for weight control. But it's also mental. For me, it was great mentally. Created my own space. Okay, I used to do my best thinking. I still do my best thinking when I'm out there, because I'm alone. I usually don't take my phone with me because I don't want to be distracted. Yeah. So I usually don't have my phone. I always tell my husband where I'm going, and about what time I'll be home. So he shouldn't worry. Yeah. Just set a goal for yourself. That's, to me, just set a goal. You want to be out there, even walking for 20 minutes. You can't do that now, so start with 5. Start with 4. Start with 3. Start wherever you are, and just build up to it. Set a goal and try to keep to it. I think that makes you disciplined, puts you on a straight and narrow course. It teaches you commitments, actually. I think that's very important. To me, running enhances commitments. You're committed to yourself. If you commit to meet a friend, to run together, you have to get up early in the morning. Weather cannot be a factor sometimes. If it's, weather's not a factor. So you're making commitment to yourself. You're making commitment to your friend, being disciplined to yourself, and just start wherever you are. That's where you start. And build up. And you know what? I'm not an elite runner. 99.9% of the runners are not elite runners. No. They may be fast, but they're not elite runners. Just be happy where you are, and accept it.
Wow. Very wise words. Thank you so much. I mean, you just have to buy a pair of running shoes, a good pair of running shoes, and get out there. And that's the key to success. Thank you so much, Susan. And we hope that you don't have to use your name as the verb too much. But as you said, walking is a little easier and it's a little slower, so you can control what's happening. Thank you so much for all the insights. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great speaking with you.
Always cool to talk to a fellow runner. And certainly Susan Siderman has been a long-term friend, a role model. She is a really good runner and very determined. We can hear that from her voice. You have to run to the line. There's no exceptions. We're determined we get to the finish line. Take it from the Iron Woman. We have episodes every Monday and every Wednesday. Don't forget to order Get Loopy, getloopy.com, the plant-based protein snack. Getloopy.com, 20% off of your first order. Take it from the Iron Woman. Thank you for listening.